Proceed.
Meetings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. The chair of the SATF staff directs all activity during the meeting. Any item on this agenda may be continued to a subsequent meeting. Special procedures and time limits may be applied to any items as prescribed by the chair. Copies of the current agenda and any staff reports for each item on the agenda are available online on the station area specific plan website, as well as on the city clerk's website.
Thank you. Next item, we have consent calendar and sent us to staff.
The procedure for the consent calendar is as follows. Consent calendar items may be enacted or approved by one motion unless requested to be removed by anyone for discussion or explanation. So the first item we have on the consent calendar is the Station Area Task Force meeting minutes of May 16th, 2024. And item 1B is Station Area Task Force meeting minutes of July 25th, 2024, special meeting.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you for a second. Those who are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Let's move on to general business, and I move over to staff.
Okay, so the first item we have for discussion is the vision charrette, which will be led by our consultants from WRT.
Thank you, and WRT, welcome again. Thank you for coming.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Jim Stickley. I'm a principal with WRT, and we're leading the station area specific plan for Santa Clara. And I'm joined by several of our team members. So Poonam Narkar, who is our project manager and senior planner, to my left, and then to my immediate left, Diksha Rawat, Deputy Project Manager and Engagement Lead. And then also joining us here are Ashwin Nembiar, who is our urban designer. And then Cindy Streetenberger with the camera right there. Cindy is from our communications team, and she's helping us communicate, getting the story about this process out to the community, just to sort of raise awareness of the process. So she's gonna just be sort of wandering around taking pictures. Don't be alarmed if she points her camera at you. And then we are also joined by Matthew Bam from Arup, from our civil engineer firm this evening. And then you can see the other team members that are also part of this effort for environmental planning, for market and economics, strategic economics, CHS consulting for mobility consulting, and then for our engagement partner with Winter Consulting. You can see Corinne Winter on the slide. So that's our full team. And next slide, please. This is our agenda for this evening. We're going to do a really brief presentation of what we're calling the opportunities and constraints. And then we want to get quickly into a workshop, which is the whole point of this gathering, this evening. And we're trying something a little different in the engagement process. And what's different is we're combining the task force that we've been meeting with now on a regular basis with the technical advisory committee. And we want this to be an interaction and a collaboration between those two groups. We see a lot of value and knowledge in both groups, and we wanted to sort of merge the groups together. So we have met with the technical advisory committee. They have seen the full presentation that we did sort of 2 task force meetings ago about our existing conditions analysis. And then they've also seen the presentation on the opportunities and constraints that we saw with the task force in our last session. So everybody's sort of up to speed in a similar way on our analysis work, and then what the extension of that analysis work is in terms of, okay, what are the real constraints here that might affect achieving some sort of vision for this new district? And what are the opportunities? You know, what are the things that start to emerge as things that people would really like to see happen to create this new district? So everyone has sort of seen that background. I'm going to show a little bit more this evening, but very quickly, because this is repeat information. So this presentation I'll do here in a minute is going to be really quick because you've all seen it. And it was really more of just a refresh, just to set the tone for us to then go ahead and do the breakout sessions. So the breakout sessions are we're dividing ourselves up into 3 groups that are going to sit at the 3 tables that you see at the end. And each table is has one of the layers of the plan that we've been looking at with you all. So there's a mobility and connectivity group, there's a public realm group, and there's a nodes and districts or a land use group, if you will. And so we're going to divide ourselves up into those 3 groups, and then those groups are going to work for about 45 minutes just to confirm or deny or add to this set of opportunities and constraints that we've been talking about. So this is really a chance to refine those ideas before we embark into the conceptual alternative stage, which was the next stage of the process. So we'll do that for 45 minutes, and then we'll take some time for each group to report back. You know, what are some of the stronger priorities that have emerged from the discussion? And we'll do that in 10 minutes, and then we'll sort of do a little synthesis of the feedback. We'll try to summarize what we've heard from each of the 3 groups, and then there will be a little time for reflection and discussion. So that's how it's all going to come down tonight, if all goes well. So that's our goal. The next slide. So yeah, just briefly, where we start always in the analysis and the opportunities and constraints is the regional influences. And Santa Clara really sits in a unique and very favorable position in the South Bay, in the middle of Silicon Valley, where there's a lot of things sort of converging here in terms of transportation and transit, but also the different kinds of land uses, the centers of employment, great residential neighborhoods, et cetera. So really understanding that context, also its proximity and connection to the airport, 1 stop away from Diridon Station when the new BART station is in, and you know, so yeah, just understanding regional context, also major transit lines, so Caltrain, ACE, Capital Corridor, and then eventually BART, as I mentioned. And the next slide. And then being mindful also that San Jose is looking at some kind of airport connector. So there's a whole sort of transit strategy underway from your neighboring city. And then in the next slide, thinking about how do we think comprehensively, one more click, about what, how do we tap into that? Efficient connections to the airport are important. Do we have that covered with the 60 bus? Is there something, more efficient that needs to sort of piggyback onto the efforts of the city of San Jose's efforts on the airport connector? So just thinking about that a little bit. And next slide. And then zooming in, so this is our district. This shows the connection to the downtown, and the downtown precise plan was an effort that preceded this effort. So there's good strong vision for the downtown in and of itself, but also how is it connected to the train station? This notion of the Franklin Street spine, the Arts Paseo. How does that go through the university and then connect very strongly to the station as a multimodal corridor, mainly pedestrian and bicycle, and maybe some form of micro transit? So there's lots of interesting ideas on the table for that. And then looking at all the other influencing and surrounding uses, the tech and biosciences corridor coming up from the right, from San Jose, the light industrial and PDR zone in Santa Clara, et cetera. How do all those interact on this station area plan? The next slide. And then who are the users? These are just, this is just a rough portrayal of who the major user groups are today. Employees, regional visitors, transit riders. We'd like there to be more overlap between the transit riders and these other uses. So that's maybe a goal of the future plan. Santa Clara University, residents and shoppers. Next slide. And then looking at sort of these three layers of how we're thinking about the district, the first being connectivity. What are some of the challenges and some of the opportunities with regard to connectivity? So you can see the pedestrian underpass here. It definitely serves a function. It will connect to the BART station, but also just back up for a second. Also the El Camino Real, as it passes Benton here, quite a formidable barrier to cross. Next slide. And then Brokaw. And that's going to be a major spine through the new northern district, right? Going up towards the airport. And, obviously the idea of connecting that to Benton has come up, and that's something that's starting to be reflected in some of the feedback that we're getting. And then what's the role of Dela Cruz in the future? Slide. So this is really just looking at all of the transit infrastructure as it is today, just for context. Everybody's familiar with this. Next slide. And then this is looking at the existing constraints for connectivity, looking at Coleman, El Camino Real as major throughputs, but a constraint in terms of being barriers for pedestrian and bike connectivity. Caltrain corridor itself, of course, as a major transit facility offering a lot of service in one regard, but also a formidable barrier between two sides of the district. And then looking at also some of the grid of streets, very complete on the south side, on the north side, not so much, just a lot of gaps in this slide. And then what are the opportunities to make that grid more complete on the north side, to overcome the barriers of El Camino Real and Coleman, maybe making those into more gracious pedestrian-oriented boulevards rather than sort of this function of regional throughput. And then how can we cross Caltrain right away itself? Undercrossings, overcrossings, what are the opportunities to make a more permeable connection between the two sides of the district? Slide. And then just some images of what other cities have done with some of these challenges and overcoming barriers. So Millennium Bridge in Denver at the Union Station, very old, iconic way to cross the tracks and connect two districts together on either side of the tracks. Next slide. Just lots of examples of complete streets. So how can El Camino Real and Pullman be more humane, you know, and have this kind of experience? And can aspects of this be brought to Brokaw on the north side, where you have a balance between that bike and like head connections, underpasses for bicycles. Lots of this going on in the Netherlands, very inspiring. Lots of it here. Next slide. And then the notion of mobility hubs. How do you get this sort of last mile connection in creative ways with micro-mobility and better shuttles, transit connections, et cetera? And the station be hub for different kinds of mobility. Slide. And then public realm. This is sort of the existing picture. There's a park planned at Gateway Crossings on the North District. Hasn't been built yet, but not much else going on up there in the north area. On the south, by contrast, some public spaces established. So what are the opportunities to expand on this network? Slide. And so this is a diagram indicating potential opportunities, you know, making Coleman and El Camino Real part of the green network, the public realm network, seeing that more as greenways rather than arterial roadways. The idea of paseos to fill in some of the in between, some of the gaps in the network. The arts paseo, the Franklin corridor from the downtown, how does that manifest across the tracks, but also manifest on the north side at Gateway Crossings, and then you know, some new park possibilities. Where should a new park be located? Slide. And then, yeah, some ideas for linear parkways. You know, could El Camino Real or Coleman take on some of this character? Slide. New parks, as I said, where could they be placed? Best serve this new community. Paseos, they can be attractors all of their own, human spaces with lots of activation. Slide. Plazas, you know, where are some significant public spaces at the station, in the office district, the workplace district. Slide. And then land use. This is the existing pattern. Everybody's quite familiar with. Light industrial in the north. Gateway Crossings as sort of the new trendsetter in the North District, but surrounded by commercial parcels. Slide. And then what is sort of a new structure for nodes? Is there a node at Coleman and Brokaw? The station node is an obvious one, and then the downtown node. That's part of the new precise plan. How do those three interact with each other and differentiate themselves from each other? Next slide. And then what might a new sort of district pattern be? Does the light industrial take on sort of a new form, still preserving it as a use there against the airport? Does the residential district expand beyond Gateway Crossings? Is there sort of a new office district hub around the station, et cetera? So how do we think about the use, the land use, but also the character and experience of these different sub-districts? Next slide. And just, you know, some examples of these. This is sort of a industrial innovation district example, Elko Yards in Redwood City. It's a rendering, but how do you make an industrial district, you know, more exciting, more varied, and a place to go and have certain kinds of experience. Next slide. Another example here at the Steelyard Maker Spaces in Providence, Rhode Island. Next slide. An office district. Where is office best placed? Where we want that, inflow and outflow of workers? How does that interact with the station? Where are those placed? Next slide. And residential, huge opportunity to, beef up the residential inventory and to provide equity, to provide different residential opportunities at, different price points. And also shape urban form with that land use and create these very approachable, walkable street frontages. Next slide. So looking again at the existing user group, and next slide. How do those groups grow? How do they overlap more with transit? We want more of those new residents and employees and visitors to use the rich transit facilities that we have and that we will have. Next slide. And then zooming in, this is a little knot of challenge right at the station area in terms of not only the land uses, but how do you overcome the barriers? How do you cross from one side to the other? You have one pedestrian under crossing now, but are there other opportunities? Because you will need more capacity. People will want to cross back and forth in all different ways and in different locations. Next slide. An important parcel is the transit parking lot now at the station. That is something that really could help advance a lot of objectives in terms of connectivity, in terms of new land uses, in terms of infill density. So really an important parcel here, not without some constraints. It's got an important well site on it, but it's an opportunity for sure. Next slide. And then, yeah, just a little 3D diagram showing this notion of a whole diversity of crossings. So you see the PED underpass in the blue lines. You see a potential Benton Brokaw underpass. You see a potential Franklin Arts Paseo overpass connecting over to the Gateway Crossing. So just something to start thinking about, where are the opportunities? And we'd like to sort of get a little bit more into this tonight with the mobility group. Next slide. And then you've all seen these. I'll just flip through them quickly, but just some inspiring things from some other places that have dealt with how to integrate a station into the fabric of a community, how to provide these crossings in beautiful ways. That's part of the experience. So Delft and The Hague are two notable examples. And then, what is Santa Clara's version of that? Santa Clara is not Delft. It's not The Hague or Rotterdam, but it's its own place. So how does a unique solution for Santa Clara create a strong identity for this community? Next slide. Next slide. And what have we heard? So just, very briefly, a lot of comments about improving connections across the right-of-way, enhanced public transit with more frequent service, expanding microtransit for that last mile connectivity, improving bicycle infrastructure, improving transit speeds. In the public realm, create green spaces for recreation and social interaction, enhance public space, support community interaction with more restaurants, nightlife, recreational spaces, and preserve historic character and value historic resources that are there. And then land use and development, promote high density mixed use, create a distinct district, the university to develop more student and faculty housing, support the university's sustainability plan, address traffic concerns, and look at some other successful examples of these industrial innovation districts. Let's try to figure out something exciting for that northern piece. Next slide. So key takeaways: focus on high density mixed use, improve connections across the Caltrain right-of-way, improve public transit frequency and expand microtransit, enhance bicycle infrastructure and first and last mile connectivity, create green spaces and pedestrian-friendly public areas, preserve historic character while introducing modern amenities, balance new housing developments with sustainability and historic preservation. So pause there for a moment. This is sort of our distillation. Like if you have to say, okay, what are our takeaways from all of this discussion about this, wanting to create this vision for this district? You know, these are some of the nuggets that we think are starting to arise. Tonight, we'd like you guys to challenge this, amend this, cross something off, add it, whatever. But I think these can start to be the basis for a vision statement. So that's sort of where this is all going. At the end of the night, we want to have collected all of the best thinking so that we can start to craft that into a vision statement. We think this is the beginning of it, and this is all coming from you all, but we might not have it quite right. So we want to further develop this. Next slide. So that brings us to the shred activity. So we're going to get to work. So we're going to divide up in groups, and we're going to take 45 minutes for each group to just get your head right into the drawing, whether you're on the mobility team or the land use team or the public realm team. I think we're going to count off in 3. So if you could start on this end. 2. Okay, so 1 is going to go to the public realm table here on the left. 2 is going to go with mobility in the middle, and 3 is going to go to land use and districts. And then we're going to also distribute some of our TAG attendees, our technical advisory committee attendees to those tables. So let's go ahead and just take a couple of minutes to regroup.
Do we want to explain the exercise first?
Yeah, okay, so let's, yeah, it's fairly self-explanatory when you get there, but next slide. So what you're gonna see is there's a sheet like this for each of the 3 layers. This happens to be the mobility and connectivity sheet. And on the top left there, you're gonna see 3 questions. Those are sort of generally trying to guide the conversation. We may have missed something. You may have another thing. Well, why didn't they ask this? So if there's something obvious to you, answer that question too. But the 3 questions are there to sort of prompt the discussion of your group. Answer those questions, write it down, just write it right on the sheet. And if you could pick a scribe in your group, that would be great. That would also be, or are we gonna, our WRT team gonna scribe? Or are they?
We can
Okay.
also.
So
We'll be at a table.
we'll scribe it. Okay, so you guys don't have to worry about that. We do want one of you to report back, though. We want that to be one of your voices. So if you can think about in your group, who's the spokesperson to report back, but we'll go ahead and scribe the conversation as it happens. And then in the big space on the left there, below the questions, are just the basic principles that you want to see embedded in the vision for the district. And so those are divided, you know, there's going to be 3 sets of those, and you know, 1 for each of these layers. But that's where that last list that I ended on and said these are sort of the beginnings of some of the vision language. This space here is where we want you to add to that and flesh that out a little bit. So that's really the purpose. And then you've got a series of cards, so these image cards. Flip through those. If there's some that clearly are applicable, just stick them right to your drawing, point to where they apply to on the plan. And if you don't like one for, just like cross it out, put a red line through it and say this is not appropriate, because that's also important. And then if there's a place that you can think of that are not in these images, it's like, I really like this thing that I saw in Copenhagen, whatever it is, write down the name of that place, be as specific as you can, because we want to gather those examples as well. So you're placing those images. You can see here that the images go down the center spine. Just stick them right there. Maybe draw a little line pointing to the plan of what they're associated with. But if there's a place missing, just write it right in there somewhere near that center column. So that's sort of the rules of the game.
Yeah, so what we do want at the end of your team's session, which would be 45 minutes in total, maybe spend the first 5 minutes introducing yourselves to each other, reviewing the board, the questions that are on the board. Maybe spend the next 30 minutes workshopping your ideas. We've put the existing conditions as well as some of the opportunity ideas on the map that is there. There's a big map on the board itself, and you can draw on it, do whatever you want with it. And then, right, you can note down your discussion as well. We'll scribe it with you. And at the end, we'll take 10 minutes to draft the principles, the guiding principles for that topic area. Maybe 3 principles, 3 big principles that you think should guide that topic area. And then we'll do the report out and everyone can have a discussion on the groups that they were not a part of, etc. You had a question?
Yeah, can we have a little bit of flexibility in floating around the groups? While I appreciate that we are like in even groups, I see misalignments in our expertise in the
Yes.
different areas.
Yes, so we were coming to that. So if anyone feels strongly about being in a different group, let us know and we can see if someone would like to switch with them. If we have any such requests.
Do we have any such requests at this time? Everybody happy with their group?
I think we'll kind of figure it out as we're standing there and just kind of like have an overview and then we'll
Yeah, we just,
orderly swap if we need to.
yes,
yeah.
that's,
Oh, yeah, so 5 minutes to review the boards, 30 minutes to workshop the vision using the questions and cards, and 10 minutes to write down the draft vision principles. That's a loose structure. Obviously, you can vary from that. The important thing is that you have a good, productive discussion, so don't get overly constrained by our format. Make sure you're having, good substantive discussion.
and a few other things. So we did meet with the community at the Art and Wine Festival recently. The city staff was there. And Tiffany, do you want to go to that slide? So yeah, staff was there. We gave them these same cards that you're going to be using today for the different precedent examples and things that people would want to add. And you can see all the dots of people's preferences. So the next slide shows us the top most popular responses that people had, which were a bike pedestrian bridge, buffered bike lanes, outdoor dining, plaza, paseos with active frontages, and mixed-use residential. Those were the things that came out on top from people's preferences. And then a lot of the things that you saw until now were things that we showed you last time as well. So from that time to this time, we've actually been working behind the scenes to ground truth some of the ideas that we presented to you so that we can still bring them forward as opportunity ideas. So we did work with Arab on our civil engineering team to see if the underpass is even possible, whether we can take that, present that idea, continue to present that idea as an opportunity idea. And from very preliminary calculations, it is possible with the information that we have available right now. So which is why we wanted to keep it on the table for continued discussion, see how people want to feel about it. Also in our previous meeting, there were a lot of discussion around whether we want to have office only focused areas or not. We went back and spoke to our economics team as well. They did push us forward into thinking still along those lines. But what we did do was reduce the footprint that we're showing of office focused area to very immediately adjacent the station area itself and expand the residential mixed use footprint a lot more. But that's all open for our visioning discussion, but we did want to like bring those ideas forward into.
Yeah, and they're deliberately called office focused and residential focused to preserve some flexibility there. It's not mandated office. It's that we think this should focus more on office. Does that mean a residential project couldn't be in that district? No, it could be. But we think that predominantly office is more appropriate, in tight with the station. And then same thing in the residential focused. Yeah, we think that's more appropriate for residential, but it doesn't mean an office project couldn't occur in that. So, these sub-districts can sort of overlap and mix a little bit. So we're looking at sort of the predominant use.
Can I ask a question here before we do this? Apologies if I'm behind the eight ball on this, but just in totality, is there a set of parameters that the team is working around with regard to like percent office, percent residential? And is there like in totality, like a target number of those things? Or is that all still being, are those types of analyses ongoing at this point?
Those are ongoing. The market also is, changing and volatile, and we're at an atypical moment right now in terms of office demand. So, this is a 30-year plan. So I think that's why there is a degree of flexibility in here. I think a strategy could be to not try to influence land use at all, just to have more of a form-based approach, and then let the market, sort of play out over the next decade or two or more. As office demand grows, that'll start coming back. It may be right now that the initial projects are largely residential, and in fact, that's already happening, with gateway crossings. So we don't have target numbers. We will need to get into that as we get into the concept alternatives. We'll have to quantify using densities and the areas covered by different land uses. We'll have to quantify, and then we'll have to go back and forth with the economics team to check the feasibility of that. So we will get there, but right now, nothing specific.
Maybe I'll just add a little more to this is, as we cannot entirely predict what's going to happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years, as Jim was mentioning, we want to build some amount of flexibility, but this is also a plan that's going to establish goals and policies. And the visioning that we are doing today, I think this is an opportunity for the task force to start to maybe establish some of those priorities in terms of jobs, housing balance, or, a certain priority that you would like to see in the station district. I think one thing that we want to remember is that when we have a district that has such a high level and high quality of regional transit, what is the highest and best use of this land around that transit, and how do we leverage this important asset for the future generations, and how do we guide the development that's going to take place over the next few decades? So, we can certainly establish some of those goals and priorities, and the guiding principles. That exercise is the starting point for that.
Could I ask, and Leslie, I'll hold off, but the photos that were used at Art and Wine, is that what's going to be used there? So I think I got to say my speech, right?
You can, but they did include your photo.
No, it's hanging right there.
No, I mean, they include it for the exercise today.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
They did.
They did. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay,
They
great.
did.
Yeah, I
But
had
if
it
you,
written
if you
down.
want to
I
give
was
your
being
short
excited
spiel as to
about
why
it.
that's important.
Dan, I think you got number 2, right? You got number 2.
What, that thing hanging there?
No, the number 2 group.
Yeah.
So definitely
Yes.
make your view be known in that group, and then report back. But yeah, we did get a couple of extra images that we've included in the mix. Yeah.
Okay, let's.
All
keep us
right,
on
let's get
track.
to it.
Let's get to our tables.
Okay, so, excuse me. So I think we're gonna call time on the exercise. Everyone. Yeah, I don't. No one cares. It's just, okay. Yeah, I don't have one. I'm just, I know. Yeah, yeah. So just, yeah. So this is it on. Yeah, it is on. Yeah.
Okay, hello groups. I know you're having a great time discussing within yourselves. We need to wrap up now. Okay, group 1, which is not here, but let's start on this end. Guys, order, order. Okay, so I hope you all had a lovely discussion within your own groups. And let's all come back together. We'll do a little share out session. We'll start with Public Realm, our volunteer.
Sign up for everybody to. I moved all the loose ones. Okay. Yeah, so we talked about the public realm and we came up with a few principles. So one thing we really thought you needed is like safer and better flow across El Camino and trying to turn that into kind of a more public friendly place. One opportunity we thought was around where the transit station is, having like a transit plaza where the buses line up on the other side of next to the Caltrain station over there. That would be a good spot to have kind of a meeting spot. Similarly, maybe transit plaza on the other side as you go under and get to the BART station. And the station itself is supposed to have a small plaza, but we'll see how that goes. We talked about having park space in the industrial area, especially if that shifts to being more residential. We want to have parks that can kind of be walked to from all the different kind of districts. So you don't have to walk more in like 5, 10 minutes to get to a park. Let's see. Yeah, we talked about reimagining the roadways, potentially El Camino and Coleman to make them a little more pedestrian friendly. One opportunity was there's this idea of maybe trying to get rid of the triangle overpass thing and turn it into more of a roundabout. And once you've done that, we might have opportunity for public space on the edge next to Costco is one of those like linear parkway example. And yeah, public art. Yeah, we also discussed trying to make sure we could have public art sprinkled throughout the district. Some examples that were used were like Denver does that. I think there's another city got brought up. And also trying to prevent mega blocks. And so having paseos within whatever blocks we have. I think that was the dairy block in Denver was mentioned. And just having that and maybe combining that with the art so that you really have a walkable district that you want to pass through. So I think we also mentioned. Yeah, so I'm just worried probably what Ray said for anybody online, if there is anybody. Possibly reusing old streets, like there's a little like dead end street over there. Maybe we can turn those into parks or other right of way. That way the city has the opportunity to change it, especially if they're not thought through well and they don't go through or don't provide a lot of opportunity. I guess there's maybe another one at the top there. You know, there's a little turnaround. We didn't put anything on the diagram, but that's a good idea where there's streets that maybe don't serve a good purpose as a street anymore. So, yep, that's where we're at.
Does anyone who was not in this group have any questions, any thoughts on public realm before we move on? Thank you. No mega block.
No. My mic's.
Here, here.
Yeah, we can go. Dylan. Does this work? Hello? Okay. Hi, Mary. Okay, so I think our number one thing was, as far as mobility and connectivity, making it friendly for walking and biking through less cars through the area. Number two, less cars through a well-designed last mile connection between the east and west side, with the tracks being the divider, between east and west, and then create a focal point along El Camino, Coleman, to slow cars down or slow people down and draw them into the city. Iconic, unique identity, different from the rest of El Camino going up to San Francisco. So to really make Santa Clara Grand Boulevard that everybody talks about.
Got so many people, you got so many people going down these two boulevards every day, fast and everything, El Camino and Coleman. And the idea of all this should be almost like you put a filter up to grab as many people, retain them as possible. So creating something so unique and iconic along these, when people turn these corners, or the curves, I'm sorry. There's no reason we can't have something amazing that it's people to say, wow, this doesn't look like El Camino all the way up to San Francisco. This is like, I want to get out and explore the city. And so it slows people down and draws them in both directions.
Thank you. No. Oh, I'm okay. Let the VTA guy do. Okay. Walkability between retail, office, housing, and transit throughout everything. Iconic overpass we discussed. Like, what's the example? Milpitas? Fremont. Places for people. Who wrote that? Brent? Yep. Right.
That's the whole idea. I was in Miami Beach, and sure, there's a nice pathway, and then there was the beach, but okay, what else? What else is this to create this as a special place that people want to come from all over the world? I mean, it's not okay to just do something that looks pretty. It has to grab people. It has to be iconic. Okay, sorry.
And focusing on Coleman and Brokaw, a lot of the focus of this project is right around where the station is and the tracks, but there's going to be a lot of people living along Coleman, and that's basically a highway to get in and out for cars. And if you're stopping to have pedestrians walk across every single light change, it's gonna back things up. So thinking about getting people over or under without having to stop the cars every time is something to consider.
The different potentials for overpass, underpass. There's a lot of constraints there with the BART station. So do you want to try to just characterize in general what some of our broader goals were there? Because we did spend a lot of time on that topic.
Okay, as far as the underpass, okay, what did we talk about? As far as making sure that it's safe for bikes, for ped. Right now, we have a ped crossing that isn't really friendly for bikes. You have to walk your bike through. That would be completely eliminated. You'd have a section for ped, a section for bikes, and then also a separate area for trolley with no cars. So I think we all agreed on no cars in that area. So again, that will get people from A to B without interfering with traffic and each other. So that was the underpass part of it. The overpass part of it, what I picked up on was somewhat of an iconic design going over BART. Am I right, Jim? Yeah, correct.
Brokaw Benton is an underpass. And then to have another underpass is like too many underpasses, you know, to have more of a diversity. There's different ways to get across and hopefully spread out a little bit too, because as these districts grow, you know, as the north or the east side grows, you don't want everybody sort of coming back and just funneling through one place or two places that are close to the same spot. But if you can start to get those connections spread out a little bit, to have a reasonable spacing, some are underpass, some are overpass. You know, the overpass is an opportunity for an identity element, you know, some sort of an iconic element. So I think that was a lot of the conversation.
It's not easy to, I mean, you're dealing with BART and the whole maintenance yard right here. And this is sort of a no-go for security reasons. But so we're challenged, well, where do you go over? And so one thought was, well, if we're going to go under here, maybe that's bikes and a tram or trolley. And then maybe you can creatively, where the sidewalks are, is do an overpass. So it goes over and under, because that's the least encumbered area versus BART and the maintenance yard. And then, of course, this area over at De La Cruz, like you guys had said in the, I forget the name, what were you guys covering? Public realm. Yeah, that maybe this can get revisioned, or, you know, can they attach a bike path or pedestrian? Because there's really nothing right now. It's all cars and it's a horrible overpass. So yeah, challenges.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of the car. Okay, I'll talk right into it. So the car-free principle is an important one. Think through a little bit. Considering that, I mean, our group got a little bit about the parking concept because we're the land use table and there's a lot of crossover between these different things. But if we're thinking about not having that much parking, although Art may be planning a 5-story parking garage, I don't know the current plan. We don't think we should apply additional parking. With that said, you need to be thinking about, I believe, how are you going to bring in people into this area who want to use art, but don't live in this station area? And to that end, I would say that the mobility plan needs to incorporate not just first, last mile, but actual transit integration. It's a little bit broader concept than first, last mile, and it really has a lot to do with providing opportunities for VTA and other transit providers to really have priority, to be able to provide high frequency transit. As far as the overpass ideas, I'm assuming those are pedestrian overcrossings and the like. There's a whole public realm element to POCs that embody this idea that I've heard you articulate about placemaking a part of these overcrossings so that there's a reason to use them. And I think that's an important element for us to try and capture as well.
Yeah, it's not just the bridge with a cage around it. And it's really narrow and you just can't wait till you get to the other end. But it's actually an enjoyable experience. It's beautiful. There's places to stop and maybe sit. So it's, it's more like the High Line, level of experience, not just sort of this utilitarian, I got to get across here as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I have a question about where the overpass was going to be. Like from the historic standpoint, there are spots for overpass that's a no-go. Just want to make sure we were thinking through where they're.
Any other mobility related questions that else has want to discuss and ask the group?
Yeah, I'll just throw something in real quick. I guess for transportation, one of the most important things is going to be including bus lanes in all the major arterial streets. There is already like a bus on El Camino. I don't know what transit is currently on Coleman, but if we do want to have efficient transit in and out of this place, whether it's to access BART or to access some of the businesses and apartments in this new development, have to be bus lanes, or else the buses are going to get stuck in traffic. People need to have an incentive to take the bus, and the strongest incentive is to make the bus faster than driving. So bus lanes, super important, not that expensive to build, and yet they can massively speed up buses.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the last group, districts and nodes. Do we have a volunteer?
Okay, so we're team land use, and I'm going to talk you through the overall plan we had for the zoning and land use in the station area. So first of all, we want to generally divide this station area into two distinct zones, okay? A light industrial innovation district and a general mixed use zone. So we were discussing over this for a while, and the idea for the mixed use zone is to have overall relatively liberal zoning code, right? In terms of height restrictions, floor area ratios, setbacks, will generally be lenient on those, allow anything commercial, residential, offices. However, we'll set overarching goals for the ratio of offices to residential in this mixed use zone. We don't have to be particularly picky about exactly where we require offices or where we require residential to go, as long as we can maintain the ratio of offices to residential as this thing is being built up over time. As we all know, the market is volatile. Offices may pencil today, residential uses may pencil tomorrow. Biotech labs may be more in demand than traditional Class A office spaces, can vary a lot. And so we need to keep the zoning very flexible to allow the market to play out and to allow developments to pencil, while keeping an overall vision for the ratio of different types of developments in order to meet the goals for how much employment and how much housing we want in this area. Now, with regards to this industrial and innovation district, right, this is going to be the more unique zone. It does abut the airport, so noise is something we have to take into consideration. And also the compatibility with what we want this station area to be. Do we want to have warehouses and heavy manufacturing, auto body shops? Do we want to have more light manufacturing, biotech labs, so on? And so after discussion, we thought it would be best to make this into a high density light industrial district, like some of the science and innovation parks you see being built around the world. In Shenzhen, China is a good example of this. We see the biotech hubs in Boston. Oyster Point has a lot of biotech labs. Even Redwood City, where they have a bunch of maker spaces and artist lofts. We want all of these land uses to be allowed in this light industrial space. Some of the more innovative concepts we saw thrown out were maker spaces, artist lofts, breweries, music venues, dining halls, all very interesting things that will not only serve the residents living in this area, but also draw people from around the Bay Area. It's going to increase ridership per BART and bring tax revenue to our city. And we want to split this industrial and innovation district into two parts, create this small buffer zone against the airport, because as we know, if we allow residential to be built in this area, it's definitely going to result in noise complaints against the airport. So a couple of solutions to this are either restricting residential uses in this strip or making sure that all residents are made especially aware that you are living next to an airport and you have to put up with the noise. So it is a real problem. Housing gets built near airports, people do call to shut it down. So it is something to take into consideration. Now, with regards to some of the more interesting aspects of this development, like music venues, entertainment zones, probably one of the best ways to diversify the mix of, the mix of entertainment uses in this area is to maybe designate certain small parts of the station area for the specific entertainment zones, like maybe put a music venue here, or maybe put a food hall here and there. We'll still keep the general mixed use zone throughout like most of the area, but maybe a couple of parcels here and there, we can make it into a special entertainment zone where we require developers to incorporate certain public amenities that are in the entertainment sector. Another thing idea I had is against the airport, maybe one of these special zones could actually be a requirement that we construct a plane spotting area and park on top of one of the rooftops. It's a pretty popular plane spotting area in Dulles Airport, and it is definitely going to draw aviation enthusiasts from across the Bay Area if we do have a nice plane spotting place in somewhere over here. Another thing we talked about was the parking situation. Obviously, we want to take a generally hands-off approach to zoning. However much parking the developer wants to build is up to them. However, in order to better manage parking, the city should work with developers in order to make parking areas shared. So, for example, if you have a mixed-use building, offices on the first few floors, residential above, it would be nice if the same parking spaces could be shared between the residents and the office. Or how about if an office parking lot is open for public parking outside of the usual 9 to 5 hours? It's nice if we can integrate all these different parking areas into like one general what you call this general pool of parking and better manage it so that we don't have parking spaces that are just sitting empty most of the day. We are making the best use of whatever parking gets built in this area. So overall, that's what I have to talk about the zoning here. However, if anyone else in this group has something to say. Oh, yes. So sorry, I left that out. First of all, talking about housing affordability, as we know, Santa Clara does have an RHNA requirement like every other city. And the RHNA requirement, it doesn't just concern market rate housing. There has to be some below market rate housing as well. Probably one of the best ways to do it is simply working with developers to get subsidized housing built in these areas using federal and state tax credits, using inclusionary zoning, which is requiring like 10 to 20% of homes to be affordable. That is not a good solution if it is not funded, because if you have inclusionary zoning, ultimately it's the developer paying for it, and it will actually result in less overall housing being built, since the affordable housing requirement does reduce the profitability of the development. However, funded inclusionary zoning, where we have the requirement of 10 to 20% affordable, but the city or the state covers the cost of the affordable units, that is a good way to do things. So we will want to work with developers in order to use local, state, and federal tax credits and subsidies in order to get affordable housing built through this area. Ideally closer to transit, because as you know, transportation is the second biggest household expense. We can have cheap housing and cheap transit next to each other. That is how we get the cost of living down. And we can work towards our RHNA requirements in the meantime. Talking about the complete neighborhoods idea, we do want to have a good mixture of businesses that serve not only outside residents, right? People taking transit or coming to this area for entertainment, but also to serve the local residents and office workers as well. And the best way to go about that is form-based zoning. So while we have a relatively liberal, like traditional zone, right, don't have restrictions on height, density, floor area ratio, on the main commercial streets, we will have form-based zoning to basically require the first floor to be what we call a flex space, where it could be used as housing for now, but it should be built to retail standards. So if in the future demand for retail increases, those ground floors can be converted to retail spaces. We do want to make sure that we don't have just blank walls on the ground floors of our main commercial streets. We do want it to be flex spaces so that it can either be retail now or retail in the future. Final thing for Costco, yeah, it's a pretty big thing. Well, we do know there's a big Costco over here. I guarantee you 100%, if this parcel of land is upzoned, it's going to be way more profitable for whoever owns this to sell to a developer than to keep the Costco there. Obviously, a 15-story apartment building or office is going to be a lot more profitable than a Costco. However, we know that Costco is a pretty essential resource for everyone living around here. So the best location for a new Costco would be this light industrial zone, slightly set away from the train station. It's going to be in an area near the airport. There is a new Costco being built in Los Angeles right now that actually includes apartments above. It is, I believe, the first mixed-use Costco in the entire country. It's wonderful to have. Imagine you'll have an unlimited supply of walnuts and toilet paper or whatever. Just go downstairs and.
One of the opportunities was to actually. One of the opportunities we talked about was actually just removing the Costco from this area and trying to locate it someplace else in the city. Mainly because one of the things that, we see here is this roundabout. And in order to decrease the density of travel in the area, we're going to have to create a reason for people, we're going to have to discourage people from coming outside to this area for other things like, just to go shopping. So to create general retail in the area that supports this, some entertainment, but not have a Costco in the middle of it all, which brings in all that extra traffic. So that was one of the thoughts as well. And then the other thing we were talking about was the like 70 to 30%, 70% housing versus maybe 30%, which would be commercial and entertainment. So that mainly that this area was mostly residential because of the transit area.
Did you guys talk about the area down there to the south across from the university?
Yeah, so I actually.
Well, the one over, yeah, right there.
Right here,
Yeah, that zone down there.
This is apparently already rezoned to be residential as well right now. And I heard that part of this is coming out behind Starbucks. I heard that that was being rezoned. Somebody told us that. Yeah. It's not rezoned, it's just being.
Yeah.
There's a multi-family.
Yeah, we have a project on file. So the existing general plan is for commercial residential mixed use. So we have a proposal to tear down the office buildings and do residential consistent with that general plan. So consistent with the existing rules, yes. Townhomes, correct. Yeah.
Do we have any idea what kind of economic range it is? Because the idea is to create, a diverse range here. So, mixed income, yeah.
Yeah, I think most of these new developments, around like 10 to 15% of the units are required to be subsidized. So it's probably what's going to happen here. Maybe like 40 to 50 affordable units. Same thing for townhouses. Most will be market rate around the $1 to $1.5 million range. Seems to be the going rate for new townhouses in this area. Yeah, I guess I can just briefly talk about what this university zone is. It seems to be we have a special area designated as university related. I don't see the need to have that, honestly. University uses can coexist with other uses. There's absolutely no reason why college dorms and a university classroom and an office building and a condo building cannot coexist next to each other. There's no need to have a specific university related zone. Just make all that traditional mixed use. Like we said, trying to take a relatively hands-off approach towards zoning in order to not only give flexibility to developers and architects, but also ensuring that if market conditions change down the line, new projects befitting those market conditions can still pencil, but we can still maintain an overall vision towards the ratio of offices to residential in order to make sure this development turns out how we want to. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns?
Gateway Crossings did 1,500 apartments. There's no for sale. So I think the key is to have for sale and rentals, just a variety. So I like that you brought that up. The key I see the BART station and kind of that focal point and along Caltrain it's super important to make that that's our storefront. Which, you have to, whatever you do right around our storefront, right? People are going on transit, you got to pull them in. And so if you leave it up to saying, I know you want to be flex with retail, but when we did the downtown, we had certain streets that were mandatory retail and some that were flex. So you just want to make sure that our storefront, because, if transit does take hold, that's going to be how people are going to go through our city, and you want them to want to get off. So I just want to make sure that that's strong and iconic. Yeah.
Makes sense, yeah. Like, I guess the form-based code could include like more specific types of retail alongside what about is maybe restaurants or something. On other side streets, the form-based code could be more lenient, like just keep it a flex space. We could have retail mandates alongside BART or on the main street itself. And on most other streets, I guess on side streets, we won't have the requirement of having flex spaces, but like you said, it will vary street by street.
One point. So, and this is, sorry, Leslie, I'm putting you on the spot, and Jim, we're not form-based code now, correct?
We're not now, but we did get a grant to do a form-based code for the station area.
So now, many people in this room know what that means. For those who don't, please look up how objective design standards, we could put together this plan. And in the case of the downtown, it was what, 5 years? And Gavin could come in and say, nope, if we didn't have form-based code, we're putting a 40-story building here, right or wrong? All housing. Forget your plan. You don't have form-based code on this, we're all wasting our time, in my opinion. So I compel everybody, if you're not convinced, look up objective design standards, preventing the state from coming in and saying, no music venue, 40-story building. And I think the city has to invest in that.
So Dan, in case you didn't quite hear what I said, the city did receive a grant for a form-based code for the station area plan. We were just awarded it. We will have to go through a procurement process. But yes, just recently.
Awesome. Okay, good. I didn't know that.
That would be from VTA.
We were awarded a grant to do a form-based code with the stationery.
Yeah.
We haven't formally accepted it
Yeah.
yet, but we've been awarded. Yeah.
So I don't know too much about, I know just enough to be dangerous when it comes to land use, but one question I have in thinking about the form-based code is, how does this plan with form-based code grant and the plan that you'll be able, the form-based code that you'll be able to co-opt for this, does that include design guidelines, for example? Does that provide, will the city be at a juncture where they can prescribe how storefronts should look in the station area? One example, there could be.
So sort of,
other
yeah. So they would be not guidelines, but standards. So actual measurable things. If you take a look at our downtown form-based code, that'll give you a better idea of the kind of standards that a developer would be held to. And those are standards. So Stan talks about objective design standards. A lot of state laws that let you kind of do housing anywhere. Say if the city has objective design standards, you still have to meet those. So that would be an objective design standards. It measures things, and probably WRT could tell you a lot better than I can. But you know exactly how much of the front of the building needs to be windows and the transparency of the windows. It doesn't necessarily dictate a specific design, but those sort of things.
Understood. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just throwing it in here, having objective design standards is really, really important. Once again, developers and architects, they are taking a huge risk embarking on these projects, and having objective standards means they know exactly what to do in order to get building permits. If these things are subjective, like we have design review boards in Seattle, and there's a chance that the design review board will reject their project, it will cause a lot of developers to back out and others to be hesitant. Objectivity is important. It allows permits to be quickly awarded, and it gives architects and developers some closure. And it's also important to make sure these objective design standards are simple and easy to understand. keep it to a few pages, but I have read through like Santa Clara's plan, and it is overall a much better plan than traditional zoning, which is what's been implemented throughout the city. So switching to form-based, it should be the goal, and it's how we create nice, livable, vibrant cities while also making life easier for architects and developers.
One last thing on the music venue. Is that on? Is, I can't, I mean, I'm the oldest guy here just about, but we're all of the same generation. And the kids want music venues. If you have an industrial area that closes at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, what they're doing up in the East Bay is those people are leasing out music venues at night for revenue. And we have my daughter, her friends, they have no spots to go to all the way up to Oakland. There's nothing all the way up to the city. So if we can create something like that here, again, away from the houses, and you got a lot of spots away from houses in the industrial areas, it would be a plus.
Space when it's not.
We definitely want to have multi-use plaza spaces, which might allow that. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Diksha?
That was lovely.
Can I quickly just give a synopsis of what my group talked about?
Oh, yes.
Just really quickly. So I was with our two esteemed community members out there in the audience, and we kind of just went over all 3 of the design boards. So I'm just going to give you a flavor of some of the things we talked about. We definitely agree that there should be more dense housing, especially around the station, and that there should be a step down in building height around the historic train station, that was very important. More hotels for the area. And we also mentioned the urban Costco that LA is the example of right now, that would also be a good idea. If there's offices, they should be farther out from the station, that really the housing should be closer to the station, that there should be a centralized parking structure and no surface parking. And that transitional housing should be allowed, and affordable housing, especially for police, fire, teachers, nurses, and those job duties. And then around mobility and connectivity, we also talked about leveling that flyover De La Cruz, El Camino, and putting in a roundabout with a nice statue in the middle, something to look at. Lots of good directional signage, the trolley that would take you to downtown and to the station area, as well as possibly to the airport or up to Levi Stadium or over to the Earthquake Stadium. And that the existing tunnel was not good and it really needed to be redone. And that a good example of a trolley system was in Monterey. That's it. Thank you.
Right. So this was great to have this discussion today. So next steps for us is that we're going to the community for our first workshop in late October, when we would be going to them. And then after that, we would be creating our vision plan based on everything that we discussed today, our vision, and then what we hear from the community. So the 4th quarter of this year, basically fall would be visioning for us. And those are the next steps.
So I think that concludes our session. Okay.
And then while the task force members are taking their seats, if there's anyone in the public who like to speak on this item, if you're in chamber, please come up to the podium. If you're online, please go ahead and raise your hand so we can capture your comments if you have any on this session. I'm seeing none. So like when the members are ready, can I have a motion to close public comments?
So moved to close public comment.
Thank you.
Second?
Those who are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Great. Thank you, everyone, for your participation, like on the charrette. And great presentations. Thank you.
Honestly.
So the last big item we have on there then here is our generally public presentations. So this is anything that's not agendized on our agenda. If you have anything that you want to bring up, please raise your hand. Member Evans. Oh, who went first?
You raised it first. Okay. I just wanted to give a quick report out on the Santa Clara CWG meeting, which occurred yesterday from 4 to 6. It's for the station area plan. So VTA is facing a $700 million budget shortfall right now on the planned BART extension. And so they're currently looking for various ways they can do to cut costs. One of the areas that is under a lot of consideration is they're looking at quite a few cutbacks at many of the stations. At least that's what they talked about primarily at the CWG. And in particular, Santa Clara has a couple of areas that are being cut back. First, they're looking at descoping a lot of the Newhall Yard area. So what they currently have planned for our yard, they're not sure that they will be able to build it all in the first phase. And so they're considering that they could save $100 to $200 million by effectively building a much smaller yard with less train storage and like removing some of the facilities, at least as part of this project, with the idea that maybe they'll build it later. And additionally, they're also looking at scaling back some of the design around the Santa Clara station. They are trying to be careful that as they do this, they don't change any of the IR stuff, but there might be an opportunity now. For example, there's a big parking lot or parking structure right now planned for BART. It's not clear that it would make sense to build that now. They could do a bunch of surface parking on the yard and then come and build something at the station later. So there's maybe some opportunities that are going to show up because of this budget cut, but also it's possible that they're very much cutting back on things. So like, some of the station designs are starting to look very sparse because they're trying to save, money here and there. So something for people to be aware about. I think those materials are now generally posted as of yesterday. They are presenting to the VTA board, I believe, tomorrow on the 20th. Yeah. So take a look out for those if you're interested, and they'll be probably coming back to some sort of design review committee at some point, but they don't have a timeline. So just want people to know that what you know about the station, it's going through some changes. So we should all be looking at that because if they don't close the funding gap, I guess they lose all their federal funding, and it's a big deal. So we should keep that in mind. Thanks.
Thank you for those. Member Ganesh?
Yeah, one small thing I want to bring up. I'll try to talk about this more in depth in the next meeting, but two things I wanted to bring up just for you guys to think over the next couple of months are condo liability laws and building codes. So if we want our station area development to be successful, we do want to have like a high percentage of units being for sale, not just for rent, but we do want condominiums for sale. And we also want units to generally be livable while also penciling out for developers. And in order to achieve this, there's two reforms at the state level that are currently in progress. Number one is reforming condo liability laws. Just to summarize, developers choose rental apartments over condos because current liability law stipulates that for I think it's either 8 or 10 years after a condominium is constructed, the HOA can sue the developer for any construction defects. And because of the way the law was worded, that provision is abused like crazy. Okay, I have one friend who's trying to buy a condo in San Francisco. It's like 9-year-old building. It's going through a liability lawsuit right now. People bring up everything from the carpet being too rough to the glass, the seal for the windows not being tight enough. And these lawsuits are going to be a huge drain on the developers' resources. As a result, most developers choose to build rentals rather than ownership for multifamily. And reforming these condo liability laws, like what Washington has done and what many other countries have done, by the way, would encourage developers to choose for sale multifamily as an option because they would not have to take out such huge insurance policies to cover the cost of these inevitable lawsuits. I know it's a kind of niche topic, but Google it up, condo liability laws. It's probably the biggest reasons why pretty much all for sale housing is single family or townhouses, why we don't have any condos being built. Second thing is with building codes. There's a movement right now to legalize buildings with only a single staircase up to 6 stories. It is safe. All other countries have it. A few countries like the United States and Canada specifically still stick to old building codes where you can only go up to 3 stories at one stair. And the problem with requiring 2 staircases above 3-story is that instead of having like, I guess, narrower buildings where you have fewer units per floor, you tend to have like very large, thick buildings with 2 staircases and a corridor connecting them. I'll talk about this more in the next meeting, but basically the 2 staircase requirement, it makes it a lot harder to build larger multifamily units, 3 to 4 bedrooms. It also makes it it also makes it more difficult to construct on smaller parcels of land. So if we do want, I guess, nice European style apartment buildings with cross ventilation, with better forms to be constructed, we do need to think about the building code reform. There's currently a push at the state level to legalize it, but it's actually the cities have the authority to allow single staircase buildings. So it's something that the city of Santa Clara should consider. But obviously, we should continue lobbying the state, supporting legislatures who are aiming to push forward those 2 reforms in order to ensure that this station area development is the most successful.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have one thing, but. Cool. Caltrain electrification is here. So the new schedule is starting like on Saturday. We're gonna start getting like 3 trains an hour, like on peak times, and 2 trains an hour on off-peak times. So it's gonna be like that's something I've been harping on at Caltrain for like a long time, is to have more frequency that will actually spur more public transportation usage. If you haven't had a chance yet, it's the rides are free this weekend. There's going to be actually a story time over at the depot in the morning. And then Saturday, there's 2 to 6. There's going to be events in Palo Alto. And then on Sunday at the same time, on 2 to 6, it's going to be in San Mateo. So go check them out. Also, as part of equity, they've actually changed the fares for youth to $1 rides. And they actually adopted that as the new fare structure, is not just for the time being. So yeah, so encourage everybody to ride and use public transportation. Cool. Anyone else? Anyone in the public that have an item they would like to present that's not on the agenda? Mary, you got something? Come on up.
To stress, I came here tonight, I wanted to stress form-based code. I'm elated to hear that we've got that going for us. Form-based code is going to save a lot of money to this city. Eventually, I think the city in entirety should be under a precise plan and a form-based code. Well, I'm very pleased to hear that. Also on the trolley. Back in the day, the trolleys, all the cities were run with trolleys. And then when the cars came in and the sprawl, housing sprawl started, they did away with the trolleys. But now we're going back. And it is very, very important that a trolley be instituted in this project. First, simple trolley to go from the downtown to the airport and back will reduce a lot of traffic. But eventually, I'd like it to see going to the stadium and going maybe to Central Park. I think it would take a lot of traffic from the roadways, and I think it would be a great idea for the city to implement. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Go for it.
The depot is open all day Saturday from 10 to 4. And we will have special events for the Caltrain, not just story time for youth, but from 10 to 1, we'll be open, and I think we'll be serving food and beverages and things like that. Okay, thank you.
He knows better than I do. Okay, if nothing else, when we're at adjournment, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Those who are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Good. And we're adjourned at 8:22. Thank you very much, everyone.